I pay too much for this vessel of mine, trapped within a cell, hidden from the world, where a stale beast shines so brightly on the outside and festers on the inside, where fine couldn't be further from the truth, putting myself back together with sticks and stones, my bones having already broken. One by one, the foundations fail, the weight of resentment crushing me flat, being strangled by hatred, shame, and guilt. How long can this really go on? Battling to keep my composure with the walls tumbling and the ceilings crumbling. Every day is the same battle, only to be asked why I didn't fix it with a smile.
August 2019, I took on the role of engagement support manager. We realised in our region that we'd got a lot of young people and children admitted to Tier 4 hospitals, so mental health units, and they were staying much longer than they should, really, in lots of ways. So I joined the Transforming Care team as wanting to understand the story, their stories, how they'd ended up, listening to them, the families. My background before that was in transitions team, so I was used to supporting children and families through these really difficult times and through challenging and helping them to make sense of a very different set of circumstances, really. What I realised when I sat in some of these young people's meetings is that each profession talks a different language, slightly different acronyms and everything else. And how on earth could a young person and their family make sense of all of that too, when you're going through some massive crisis at the same time? So it was very clear that there was a role needed. And alongside the back of this, NHS had decided that actually part of their 10-year plan was to ensure that young people who have learning disabilities, autism and or challenging behaviour and other complex diagnoses all had a key worker, but they didn't really know what that was going to be all around. So the Council for Disabled Children and a whole load of us from different CCGs all got together and thought about what that role needed to look like in order to help reduce the length of stay if young people became so unwell that they needed to be in hospital. And the other commitment is around trying to avoid the admission in the first place.
Looking back, probably going back to 2018, my son Kai, he lost his grandparents in quite quick succession. And I don't know whether that sort of triggered something in his head that he wanted to be a healthier person. By that summer, we had noticed he was becoming a little bit obsessive about being healthy and sort of trying to get fit and so forth. Didn't really think too much about it because he wasn't obsessive to the degree that I was thinking he's getting an eating disorder, but there was just little things that sort of stayed in the back of my mind thinking, maybe I need to keep an eye on this. In November 2018, we moved house, and again, a quite big sort of milestone. And I suppose because he is on the autistic spectrum, it was probably a bigger deal for him, having lost his grandparents, then moved. He was at that point in year 11, again, GCSEs, so there was a lot of things going on. January 2019, I thought, he's really losing weight to the point people were noticing. So I thought, this isn't just me. He was becoming quite restrictive on the types of foods he'd eat. And it wasn't just him not eating, he would really restrict the amount of fluids he'd have. I contacted the GP. The GP wasn't helpful. He was quite dismissive. He said, we'll see him again in about a month. He'd lost more weight. Then he had some bloods done that were coming back up a little bit abnormal. And he was also under sleep solutions because he'd always had problems with sleeping or lack of sleeping. And it was the lady from Sleep Solutions that sort of got the referral process going. We were seen by CAMS quite regularly, the eating disorders team. Yeah, and he just was deteriorating all the time. He was eating very little, and it was only like a couple of specific foods. He always looked very ill. He was having to have repeated bloods because they were all going haywire. It was at that point the consultant psychiatrist said, you know, I think we might have to look at him being hospitalised. I felt really negative. I felt like saying, he's not come from an awful family home, you know. Now I know, obviously, he had come from a nice family. He just, unfortunately, managed to start college because he was doing music performance and he was really, really keen. I had to inform college of how ill he was, and they basically had to say he couldn't attend because he was too much of a risk. The doctor has said if he collapses, it is a 999 call. He will need to go to hospital very quickly. September 2019, he had that was when they first tried to section him, and it was agreed that he would be given another chance to try and turn things around. But then in October 2019, they attempted to section him again, and this time he was taken by ambulance. Having your child sectioned is one of the most horrible things ever. We were failed very, very early on. I think I was really, really keen for early intervention to take place because I thought if we can nip it in the bud, you know, you've got more chance of it not developing into something sinister and nasty, which it is. And my long-term hope was that he would be in a better place with his recovery, less likely to relapse. I mean, I was in contact with the school, the Senko, saying I've got real genuine worries, this is happening. And then the GP, I mean, like I say, the first times we went to the GP, he was so dismissive. And then it's like now the situation with Kai, he's got a real, real serious distrust of any health professionals. Every time the phone used to go, and it could be anyone, he would, first question he'd say to me, are they coming to take me back to the unit? So he was really, really traumatised, and you know, I'd be like, no, it's nothing to do with you, Kai. But he was so convinced that I'm paranoid that everyone was out to get him. Obviously, I do worry if he gets ill and I do need, especially medical help, how am I going to get that for him?